Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Here with your hosts, Jacob Smedley,
Sam Betts,
Justin Reed Hammond,
and Peter Amarante.
With today's special guest,
Cameron Whitney.
really not a special guest anymore, Cam, really a part of the show. So many episodes. Our topics today include baseball. The postseason is here. Divisions are clinched. A wild ride through the postseason set to take shape. We'll give you predictions. We'll go through the seeds and give our thoughts later on in the show. And also, we'll get into some NFL action. We're through 4 weeks, some crazy plays and special teams, some injuries to make note of, and some other topics really catching our eye so far this season. Now, here's Sam Betts. Sam, baseball. The postseason is here. We've got seeds. We've got the division series already underway. Kind of take me through it, go through the teams, let's see what you're thinking.
Yeah, Jake, like you said, we're already in the division series for the National League and the American League. We've already gone. We're a little late to the party, but that's okay. We already went through the wild card. If we want to touch up on those a little quick for the National League, we had the Dodgers and the Reds, which the Dodgers really kind of handedly beat the Reds. It was not really too much of a problem for them. They won 2 games out of the three. And then for the other wild card for the NL, we had the Padres and the Cubs were able to kind of clinch it out there in a 2-1 series against them. If we go over to the other side, we go to the American League. We had another close one with the Yankees and the Red Sox. A little bit of pitching woes for the Red Sox there. Brian Bello in one game only went two and a third. Not had to go kind of to the bullpen, kind of made it a little shifty situation for the Red Sox, and they were not able to win the series. The Yankees move on already. And then we have the Guardians and the Detroit Tigers, and the Tigers with the upset. The sixth seed, Detroit Tigers, Motor City, beating out the Cleveland Guardians and kind of leaving the Cleveland Guardians in another year of mediocrity, unfortunately. Not able to really get postseason, um, able to make the postseason, but not really able to get going there. Really haven't been to a World Series since 2016, and really haven't won a World Series still since 1948, I believe. So, but Detroit, very happy to see that. A really nice, young, and very likable team going up against the Mariners here pretty soon. So that's kind of where so that's kind of the wild card. If we go now into the division series, we're already looking, we got a couple games going on tonight. But we already had the Cubs and Milwaukee play. The Cubs kind of looked to take an early lead there. I know Michael Bush um, made a home. He had a home run, I think, in the first at bat of the series, but the Milwaukee able to clinch it out 9-3. And then on the other side with the ALDS, the Toronto Blue Jays really able to give a shellacking to the Yankees, 10-1. Alejandro Kirk, a fan favorite catcher for the Blue Jays, had 2 home runs that game. So Jake, we're already underway, and we still have a couple of games going on. We have Detroit and the Mariners going on right now, and the Dodgers and the Phillies. What do you think about it so far?
Yeah, a great breakdown there, Sam. Just to kind of go into the wild card a little bit further, I think again, out touch on. You mentioned that the Tigers and the Guardians. The Tigers had a double-digit division lead by the middle of the season, and really a huge seismic collapse had the momentum against them, had to go to Cleveland for the series, and to be able to come out of that with the victory, had Skubal, who really set the tone in that game one for Detroit. I mean, once you get into the postseason, I think a great quote that was mentioned on one of the broadcasts from Terry Terry Francona is the postseason is really like a brand new season. You kind of throw out the regular season stats, throw out whatever happened, especially for Detroit in that final really 2 months of the season. They came out, they took it to the Guardians. Their pitching really set the tone, and they were able to take it. And really, very similarly in the other wild card with the Red Sox and the Yankees. The Red Sox, the pitching set the tone in game one. They got the lead, but their offense went quiet. They weren't able to make the little things, do the little things, fielding errors, base running errors. Man, Cam Schlittler, man, in that third game, 8 innings, 12 strikeouts as a rookie, really shut down that offense. And then in the National League, the Dodgers, just an absolute powerhouse, kind of rolling through the Reds, who kind of backed in, outlasted the Mets in really a rough situation there for both of those teams. The Mets, another just collapse down the stretch, unable to get those victories against the Marlins. And on the flip side, the Cubs and the Padres, huge controversial call. We can discuss it further if you want, Sam. That strike call from Keller to Xander Bogaerts in the final game, but another low-scoring series. But the Cubs really impressed with their pitching. Matthew Boyd, Imanaga pitched very well in that series, moving on to the series. So I thought very entertaining. 3 out of the 4 wild card series going to a third game, which is great for baseball and great to see with that format.
No, Jake, I mean, controversial call like that, probably in 2026, that's going to get the top of the helmet there, for sure. But I mean, that's baseball, man. That's you're gonna have that human element. A couple of good people actually talked about that human element, not to kind of derail so much, but like Walker Bueller, newest Philly right now, talked about the human element, having the umpires having control of the game, not really going to the robo ump. But I mean, the robo ump, that's gonna make it a big different. That would make it a big difference there, and that might have even changed the outcome of the game. But I guess we'll never know now. If we're gonna go in, Jake, we'll kind of look at kind of the games going on right now. The Phillies are playing the Dodgers right now, and right now it's 5-3, bottom of the ninth, and the Phillies are up to bat. If we're kind of look at we're gonna go kind of to the other side. The Tigers and the Mariners are still 0-0 in the top of the fourth here, so that's gonna. I'm surprised about that no one scored, but um, kind of just as we're looking here, the divisional round is gonna really kind of be the one that's going to show us who's going to go to the championship and even kind of give us like a little bit better idea of who's going to the World Series. I mean, Dodgers and the Phillies, they're definitely, I would say, the two top teams in the MLB right now this season. Kind of coming up with that. The Milwaukee Brewers, they're always just such a weird team because they're always usually good and they always make the playoffs, but then something usually just always happens where they kind of just have an early exit. And the Cubs, I mean, the Cubs are kind of looking to kind of repeat off of their 2016 series, really have kind of been getting close, getting close, getting close, but they got guys like Michael Bush, Kyle Tucker, Nico Horner's developing into a really nice second baseman, middle infield guy. Their team's kind of really coming together, and this is kind of the fruition of that, them kind of making it to the playoffs. Um, I don't know, Jake, do we want to do a little bit of predictions or where we can kind of go into that a little bit, or
Yeah, yeah, I definitely would like to hear your thoughts, Sam, on the predictions, but just touching on those teams as well. Again, the Brewers, Cubs, the NL Central. I think that this Brewers team has a different vibe about them, and just with the whole Bob Uecker, do it for Uke, the story that they've kind of run with this season, the pitching depth. I mean, they always just a pitching factory that they have there in Milwaukee with Freddie Peralta, Jose Quintana with a bounce back here, Quinn Priester, who they got from a trade from the Red Sox, brought him in. He's been fantastic for them, and I mean, I think people are kind of again using the postseason narrative, kind of underselling their success. But yeah, you mentioned Phillies, Dodgers, the two powerhouses, the two big money spenders, doing it for and now matching up in the NLDS with still 2 rounds to go. go. And then on the American League side, I mean, you look at the Yankees, but then you got three smaller market teams with the Blue Jays, with the Mariners, who what a fantastic story that is, clinching the division, and then the Tigers, who we just mentioned, kind of on a potential ride after that fall off. So very interesting, almost a little polar opposites on each side. But love to get your thoughts and predictions moving forward, Sam, in each of these matchups.
All right. Well, why don't we go over kind of to why don't we go over to the American League side first? Kind of just going on there. So these games are out of five. So the ALDS is out of five, correct? And then the ALCS is out of seven, and then World Series is out of seven. Yes. So kind of looking at it, we're still really early into these. So these are kind of like the way too early predictions of who's going to the World Series or who's going to win the World Series, just for our viewership. But if I'm kind of looking at it, I'm thinking Mariners kind of beat Detroit. I think Detroit, like I said, they're a really young, fantastic team, but I think they just still have some growing to do, just a little bit. Maybe next year they kind of make it to like an ALCS. They kind of keep going further and further. But right now, I'm thinking the Mariners are going to kind of take them over. I think it's going to be. I think Detroit's going to put up a fight. That game, honestly, that series might go to 5 games. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. But definitely going Mariners over them. The Yankees and the Blue Jays is kind of an interesting one, especially since the Blue Jays really kind of just took over today. It's kind of telling for me a little bit. Um, even though the Blue Jays are the number one seed, they took that top of the AL division. I mean, the Yankees. I mean, with Aaron Judge in that lineup, Jazz Chisholm. Um, you kind of have Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt kind of switching out there at first base. Um, that's not a lineup you want to mess with, including Ryan McMahon from the trade deadline. I don't know. I think the Blue Jays move on to the ALCS.
Really? Over the Yankees? Over the big bad Yankees, Sam?
I think over the big bad Yankees. I think they take this. I think they take it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go in four. I think they. I don't. I think the Yankee. I think the Yankees get one. They might even get this next game. I think they might even get this next game, but I think the Blue Jays, they kind of figure it out and they push forward and they go to the ALCS. If we go over to the NL side, honestly, I think the Cubs take it over the Brewers. Like I said, the Brewers, they always seem to make the playoffs. They're kind of like the regular season Warriors. They have they've been at the top. They've actually been at the top of like the leaderboard. They've been that number one, two seed a couple of years in the MLB so far. They've always been the regular season warriors. They make it to the playoffs, and then it's just kind of like it's just a little bit of a struggle for them. They just haven't really been able to make it to an NLCS or just get to like the big game. And I think that train, unfortunately, still continues for them. I just think the Cubs. I really like like I said, I really like their firepower. I really like what the bats are doing in Chicago. I'm taking the Cubs over the Brewers. Um, and then we have the Phillies and the Dodgers. I really want the Phillies to win. We all know I want the Phillies to win. It's just the nature of it. Is that going to happen? I don't know, especially with how tonight is going right now, and actually how tonight went because they just lost 5-3. That game just ended. So I guess the fan in me is saying the Phillies, but I guess I'm going to go with the Phillies. I'm going to stick with my fan team, even though I'm probably wrong, and I'm okay with that. Um, yeah, so that's kind of for the NLDS. NLC, do we want to do the NLDS or do we
Do you
want to do
want
the
to?
whole
Do you want to? I
thing?
can give mine, and then we can kind of
Yeah,
go
why don't you
from
give
there.
me
We can go
why don't you
back,
give
and
your why don't you
then
give
kind of move
yours?
forward.
Why don't we give you yours? We'll let you do yours.
All right, all right. All right, all right. So let's see. So Sam had the Blue Jays, Mariners. All right. So Tigers, Yankees. It is. No. So yeah, I guess going back, we'll go back to the Mariners and Tigers. I think I'm right on your wavelength, Sam. I am worried Brian Wu is out. He is not on the Mariners ALDS roster with, I believe it was a pectoral strain, if I remember correctly. You know, could certainly. Yeah, that is interesting. George Kirby starting again a game that again you people will have the results when this podcast is out of what happened there. But he's starting, and then Luis Castillo. So Logan Gilbert is not even going to be pitching, or at least starting in a game until at least game three. Skubal will be pitching in game two. So an opportunity for the Tigers to at least steal a game on the road. But I just like the Mariners' offense a little bit more with Cal Raleigh, with Julio Rodriguez, with Eugenio Suarez, and Josh Naylor, who they picked up at the trade deadline. So I'm going to agree with you, Sam. I have the Mariners going on to the ALCS. On the other side, Yankees, Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have had the Yankees number in the regular season. They won the tiebreaker. They have, again, both of these teams, the familiarity, again, the AL East, really that side of the bracket with the Red Sox, the Yankees, and now the Blue Jays. What's worrying me is the Blue Jays bullpen and their starting pitching. They have Trey Savage going in game number two, the rookie who made his first big league pitching appearance earlier this year. So see how he adjusts. But I like the momentum that Toronto's got. So Sam, I think I'm in on the same wavelength here with you for the American League. I'm gonna go Mariners. I'm gonna go Blue Jays. Then on the NL side, this is where we differ, Sam. Again, like I said earlier, I love what the Brewers are cooking. I think they have the recipe. I think this is the year that they, at the very least, break through to the NLCS with the offense. Update, Jackson Churio left the game against the Cubs in game one. That could change things, especially at the top of the lineup. But I'm going Brewers. I'm going to say it's Brewers in four. The Cubs pitching still concerns me. I think they could slug with the Brewers, but that pitching, it really, really worries me. And then Phillies Dodgers. Really, I don't want to say again the granddaddy of them all, but I think two teams that have the postseason pedigree, that have the players with experience in the postseason. I think it goes five no matter who wins. It's so tough. It's so tough, but I'm going to be right with you, Sam, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say the Phillies get it done in five, but again, it's back and forth, just like as you mentioned, the Dodgers taking game one could easily see it tied up 1-1 heading to Los Angeles. So yeah, Phillies, Brewers, and then Mariners, Blue Jays of the championship series. Sam, who's going to the World Series and who's your champ?
To be honest, we could go back to 1993. We could I'm we can go
Is
we could
that where you're
see.
going?
Yeah, that's where I think
Back to
I'm
the
going.
future, Sam?
I think I'm going Blue Jays Phillies
Whoa, Blue
for
Jays,
our World Series.
Phillies.
I think they I think the Blue Jays kind of, if this is how I'm thinking about this in my mind, um I think the Blue Jays kind of just whittle out the Mariners.
Really? Against that pitching? Against that pitching in the Mariners, you're going with the Blue Jays. I'm just asking.
I feel like if Brian Woo's still out, I know Bo Bichette is out for them right now too for the Blue Jays, so that kind of leaves a hole there. But I mean, um, yeah, I think they just edge him out. If Alejandro Kirk keeps hitting how he's hitting, there's another young guy for the Blue Jays who he had a really big hit. I remember actually watching him in like minor league baseball, like playing against like Phillies organization at some point. But like and then he came up and he's had a lot of really like clutch highlight plays for the Blue Jays. So I mean, he keeps doing what he's doing too. I mean, I think if the bats keep rolling in Toronto, they make their way to the World Series.
So 1993 rematch, Sam. Who wins? How many games? Phillies, Blue Jays. I'll do the same in response.
If it's Philly Blue Jays, how many games it goes? This is even if the Phillies even make the World Series, which I'm really not sure now is going to happen. But if they do,
This is a prediction, Sam. It's a prediction. We're always. Justin is going to go into how he was wrong 5 times over in the NFL in just a second. So give your prediction here. I'm just kidding, Justin. You're probably right. We'll go into it later. But give your prediction, Sam, for gosh sakes.
all right, it's Philly Blue Jays. It's 1993. If we go back to 1993, it's probably going to end how it did in 1993. The Blue Jays win in 6 games.
Wow, wow. The Toronto Raptors fan going with the Toronto baseball team to win it all. No, that's interesting. Faith in the Jays. I love it, Sam. Jays. You said so. Jays in six. So just Jays in six. Okay, okay.
Because then the Phillies are going to break
Ooh,
my
all
heart. Because the
right.
Phillies are going to break my heart, and then I'm going to wallow in sorrow for a month, and then I'll be fine. But no, I mean, to be honest, like if this keeps going if this goes how I think it's going to go, the Blue Jays edge out the Yankees. They're going to edge out the Mariners, and then Phillies somehow make it past the Dodgers, to make it past the Cubs, if we're going to go with my prediction. And then they get to the World Series, and then it's going to be 2022 all over again. So it's going to be 2022 and 1993 all over again.
Just brutal, heartbreak, heartbreak, but elation for an entire country for Sam. So, on my end, yeah, Toronto and then Canada as a whole just going crazy for you, Sam. Sam is building a nation on his trust, on his prediction. So we'll see.
There's an Expos documentary coming out on Netflix soon. So we're talking about when Expos baseball came out. But that's off topic. Jake, what do you think is going to happen? Who are your World Series hopefuls?
You are procrastinating my picks. That is fine. That is fine. I know you're confident. That's why you're trying to tone me down here. Uh, so for me, Mariners, Blue Jays, I'm going to go in a different direction, Sam. I'm going to go with another team that it's been a while since they got to the mountaintop. They actually have not made a World Series or won a World Series, the Seattle Mariners. I'm saying they get there. They climb the mountaintop. The pitching has been exceptional. The bullpen, love it what they got. Again, they've got at least 4 starters deep, especially if Brian Wu returns and he can come in. They can have guys out of the bullpen. I know, of course, there's, the first year manager. The lineup in October hasn't been the most successful. Not a lot of proven track record guys, if you will. But yeah, I'm with it. I'm buying in the Mariners hype. I think right now they're playing like the best team in the American League. So I have them getting past the Blue Jays into the World Series. And then Phillies Brewers. I think it is a great series. Could also be, Dodgers Brewers if the Dodgers win that battle of a series. But in my prediction, I have it Phillies Mariners World Series, and I'm going to stick it in the American League too, Sam. We both have heartbreak for the Phillies. I'm going to say the Mariners win in 6. So we have the same Phillies NL champion, but different World Series and AL representatives. I got the Mariners, the first World Series appearance, and they host the trophy at the end of it. So, yeah, Sam, any thoughts? We're going to be watching closely to see which one of our predictions is correct.
No, I think that would be honestly, if the Mariners made it to the World Series, that would just be a victory in itself. Even when they won 116 games in 2001, if I'm correct on that year, even when they had Ichiro Suzuki, stuff like that, I don't even think they made it out of the divisional round. They lost in the divisional round. So, I mean, if they were able to make the World Series this year, that would be a feat. Like win an ALCS, get to the Series, and even have just the potential to win. That would be a really big. That would be a really big win for Seattle. So,
Yes, Speaking of s- speaking of Otani, did you see him catching like fly balls out there in their inner squad game? And was like, this guy could play in right field for a team right now. He's out there running around catching. He was like batting too. So incredible stuff. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So
No, you're good. Honestly, that's all I have to end. Hopefully, I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty exciting playoffs. It's already been a fairly exciting playoff, so we'll see kind of just where it takes us.
yeah, tune in. Playoffs again going on as this episode is out now. Games continuing on TBS, on Fox, Fox for the American League, TBS for the National League. So stay tuned. Keep up with our predictions. Now, sending it over to Justin. Speaking of predictions, as mentioned earlier, we're going to be revisiting some of those, but some also other craziness, some injuries in the NFL we've got to get to, especially with some star players, not just in fantasy, but these teams really going to be without their big stars the rest of this year, potentially next. Justin, what is the latest on this really wild start to the NFL season?
Oh, thank you, Jacob. I appreciate what you said about those predictions. It actually made me curious. I just went back and checked, and actually, my NFC predictions are almost perfect, but my AFC is pretty rough. So, a little bit right, a little bit wrong. Don't worry, Sam. It probably happened to you too. But let's start over with some of the injury concerns that we've seen in the NFL this season. We've seen a lot of big name stars go down, as well as just a lot of like nagging injuries as well. I'll just list a couple here that I found that were kind of significant. Joe Burrow, of course, the toe injury, eyeing a week 16-ish return. Lamar Jackson, hamstring, he'll be out for this week at least, potentially next week and going into the bye. James Conner out for the season. Malik Neighbors tore his ACL, out for the season. Matabike from the Ravens, out for the season. CeeDee Lamb returning maybe next week. Tyreek Hill out for the season. J.J. McCarthy went down. He's hoping to get back within the next few weeks here. Quincy Williams trying to get back to. George Kittle as well, same situation. Brock Purdy coming back hopefully soon. And then Nick Bosa as well, out for the season. Brandon Ayuk, we don't know. And Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, they've both been out for a while too. They're hoping to get back pretty soon. But that's just like scratching. There were a lot of guys on these lists that I was scrolling through, and I was like, I could mention this, but I just wanted to save some time. But that was a pretty lengthy list, and we're only 4 weeks into the season, but that's just kind of how it goes usually in the early going in the NFL. A lot of these guys, their bodies aren't quite used to playing yet, and we're seeing the results of that on the field.
I think one thing to mention too, and we can have another conversation about it too, is of course all these star players getting hurt, and you hate to see it, especially for these teams, these franchises, these fans, that spend the tickets to go out and see them. But another conversation I think that's really been coming up lately is the playing surface that these guys are going out, and the different teams implementing turf fields versus grass fields. I know there's a little debate going on now with MetLife and implementing a change from turf to grass. That's something, especially with these lower body injuries, that these wide receivers, these defensive linemen running upfield, getting hurt. So, I think that's a big part of it, and just a shame that's so many injuries, and again, essentially 4 weeks of time so far.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing too is that a lot of them are a little bit more significant than I think we're used to seeing in the NFL. Of course, you get the occasional ACL tear here and there, but I mean, for instance, what happened to Tyreek Hill, that was just gruesome stuff. I mean, that's not something you see every day. In fact, I think our resident athletic trainer might have a word on that too.
Yeah, when you dislocate your knee, and obviously it's not just your patella, like your like kneecap. He dislocated his entire knee, like his tibia disconnected from his femur, which led to like an ACL tear, probably a couple other ligament tears like PCL. And that's even a medical emergency too when you get into losing blood flow. nerve damage potentially. So that's like a really scary injury. Even just being an athletic trainer, watching injuries, it's kind of part of my job, but watching it in slow motion and watching watching that tibia and that knee actually kind of shift out, was pretty scary to see. Thankfully, I know he was actually able to get to the hospital. They were able to do an MRI. He was able to have surgery immediately. And he didn't lose. I don't think he lost blood flow at all. I don't think he had really any extensive nerve damage, but it's going to be a long road to recovery for him. So it's a very scary injury. Thankfully, he's doing okay and he's safe right now.
Let's talk about the impact of special teams, special players. I'm talking about specifically the kicks. And from what we're seeing so far this season in the NFL, we've had the highest rate since 1991 of blocked field goals. It has been, I think, 17. That is the most recent data since Thursday night, where there was a blocked kick. So that's a lot for this early in the season. Maybe we see typically like 3 at this point, if that. But 17 is a lot, and it's impacting games significantly. Eagles fans know they won on a blocked kick against the Rams. The Rams outplayed them at the end, and the Eagles somehow broke through the line and scored a touchdown on a play that they should have lost. The Bears won against the Raiders. The Cowboys, they blocked an extra point, returned it for 2. That game ended tied in the end. And I have a theory as to why, but first, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts.
I mean, I think you said it perfectly. I think it's crazy to see the number of blocked kicks so far and so early in the season. I mean, speaking as an Eagles fan, Jake would probably agree with me. It is exhilarating to see, especially when your team does it back to back games. I mean, now, granted, it was a field goal block and a punt block to start the game in the next week against Tampa Bay, but I don't. I'm curious to hear what you have to say, Justin, because it is fascinating. It is so cool because we think 3, 4, 5 years ago, blocked kicks were so rare that it was like earth shattering when it happened, and now it's just like you expect that line to break, and these kickers, excuse me, have to be a lot quicker, and the snappers have to be a lot faster on their snaps, and the blockers got to hold that block a lot longer. I mean, I think that the shift in the special teams is going from that's just a given 1 point unless the kicker messed up or the holder messes up to you got to earn that 1 to 3 points now. You got to earn that punt now, and I think it's going to have a lot more of a weight on every game from here on out.
I mean, I think for me, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a theory, but we all talk about the 3 phases of the game. We talk about the offense, we talk about the defense, we talk about the special teams. I think this year we're seeing a lot more people make plays on special teams than we ever have. Is because those are the ways you win the football game. And the way to capitalize on those wins is, special teams. And I think people underutilize that special teams is as important as an offense and a defense. And so I wouldn't say it's necessarily a theory. I just think teams are utilizing that more this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Both Peter and Cam kind of bring up, the importance of and what teams are looking at. I think it's definitely it kind of historic the way that this is happening, and credit to the teams. I'm wondering if it's a speed thing. I wonder if there's maybe a little adjustment that these teams are making on the line, if they're, have to maybe dive deeper into the different kind of lineups, because we haven't seen any kind of unique kind of positions on these punts, on these kind of kicks, where they maybe spread out a little wider or they condense in. I know with the Eagles there was a video after the Rams block kick where the long snapper, you just see him kind of like stood up, and there's defensive guys that right around him, and there was some Rams fans saying get this guy off the team. He's not blocking anyone. He just snapped the ball. He stood straight up. So, I'm wondering if it's the positioning of the guys up front, if teams are kind of getting a read, okay, if we can really split the two defensive tackles, find those A and B gaps around the long snapper, and get a larger trajectory up over the. So I think it's interesting to break it down, but yeah, again, adding on to Cam, the importance of these kicks really changing wins to losses. And, we could be looking back at the end of the season on really a historic special team stretch, determining seeds at the end of the day for some of these teams because of the focus and attention on those ends. And we're seeing the little things done to win games that win these games in the postseason.
Yeah, so the theory that I have, I don't know if you guys know this, but the NFL this year passed a rule that the teams are now allowed to provide their own kicking balls and break them in as they choose. Now, before this rule was implemented, they would be given the kicking balls about 90 minutes before the game, and that's all the time they had to break it in before they were allowed to go. Now they have balls that the kickers are comfortable kicking, basically practice balls. And the idea was that they were supposed to basically be for the kickers to make more kicks, make longer kicks. It was supposed to extend the range of every kicker in the NFL. But in doing so, it might be changing slightly how the kicks are flying in the air, and it might also be changing the trajectory at which they come out. And by doing that, the unintended consequences of getting longer field goals is now that we are experiencing more blocked kicks. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's just the theory behind what I was thinking. But let's move forward to the next section that I have, which is more of a mini section. I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I think that's a great theory. And Justin, I don't think we should just move past this kind of discovery that you have here, or at least theory in play. I think that's another part, again, talking about the importance, talking about kind of that could be a huge situation where there's an adjustment being made, and maybe there hasn't been any changes to what these teams are doing, and it's just that kind of change with the different kicking ball, the different strategy, these kickers kind of adjusting to it, and that slight adjustment gives that slight edge to the team defending it, and then you're talking about almost completely flipping the success rate of these blocks and stuff, which, yeah, it's an incredible theory that should just not pass by, my friend. That's great.
I mean, yeah, it was just one of those things that I picked up when I was watching some of these commentators. They would mention it, and then, you see all these block kicks, and I'm thinking, well, maybe those have something to do with each other. Maybe there's, because you ever see how a longer kick flies? It's always a little bit lower to the ground. So I don't know. That was always kind of just the thought behind it. But, I'm a scientist. That's what I do. I theorize.
Yeah, well, the NFL needs more theorizing.
Anyway, moving on to the section I like to call the good, the bad, and the ugly. We are talking about teams that are good and they shouldn't have been, teams that are bad and they definitely shouldn't have been, and then teams that are ugly and maybe they should have been, but they're still ugly. So we'll move on with my number one surprising pick, the Indianapolis Colts. Give me Indiana Jones, Danny Dimes. This guy looking like an MVP candidate through 4 weeks. They have been one of the revelations of the NFL this season, kind of like Minnesota was last year. It's just one of those things where I did not see coming that they would be winning so many games. And then I have as well the Seahawks, who are sitting at 3-1. I don't think I expected them to be 3-1 at this point, maybe 2-2. So they squeaked out a couple of games that maybe they shouldn't have. The Chargers have looked great, other than last week's dud of a performance against the Browns. But they've actually looked very good, and Jacksonville as well has looked pretty good through the first 3 weeks, to the point where I'm actually thinking about picking them against. I think they're against Kansas City this week. I'm actually thinking about that. That's they've looked pretty good. And then San Francisco is 4-1 right now. I know I said that they were gonna win a lot because of their schedule, but I put them here because of all the injuries they have on their team, and yet still they're finding a way to win some games.
Can we go back to when you said you're going to pick the Jaguars over the Chiefs? I just
I
want to
didn't say
say
I would. I said I was
that
thinking about
Yeah,
it.
thinking about it. Yeah, wow. To get to a point of thinking about it, though.
I saw Jake's face, and Jake's jaw, I think, was so low on the floor that I don't think you could have gotten any lower. Jake, tell me what you're thinking, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to the point where we're thinking of picking the Jags over the Chiefs, I think, I don't know how, I mean, it says a lot about both teams, really. Again, I'll just touch on the Jags, as Justin mentioned, with Trevor Lawrence. I think the biggest part has been their defense. I mean, their defense has been, fantastic. Of course, week one, they were going up against the Joe Burrow-led Bengals, a key differentiator there, Joe Burrow versus Jake Browning, what that's been so far. But that defense has been very solid so far. And yeah, with Trevor Lawrence, with ETN, who has really come on in that backfield spot, really a great resurgence for him, and they're really doing it without Brian Thomas Jr. really having a great impact, or at least an impact that many thought kind of in that sophomore swoon a little bit. So, yeah, to that question, Peter, it's both teams. It's the Chiefs' struggles, but it's also Jacksonville starting to earn some respect around the league. So just the thought that before the year, we get to week 5 and we're thinking about picking Jacksonville over Kansas City is pretty interesting, and really almost a microcosm of the league, how it's gone so far.
It makes you wonder, like, sure, the Chiefs, like, you saw some tapering near the end of last season and then they lost in the Super Bowl and their slower start this season. Is it the fact that they're without Rasheed Rice and Xavier Worthy for a few games? Is it the fact that, like, I'm trying to figure out how the Chiefs went from this dynasty superstar team that people trembled in their boots from seeing, and now it's like, oh, hold on, wait a second, they can be beaten, and here's how. Where do you think that shift comes from?
It's immeasurable. I think it's tough to decide really because their defense hasn't been playing as well as they did in years past. Maybe people are finally just figuring out Spagnuolo's scheme. But their offense too. Their offense has been lacking some playmakers. We saw the impact of Xavier Worthy when he came back. Rasheed Rice, we don't know what kind of impact he'll have when he comes back. If he comes back, we'll see. Pending lawsuits there, but yeah, overall, I think it's a combination of a lot of factors that is really just making an unfortunate turn for the Chiefs and a very fortunate turn for the rest of the NFL.
Oh, no, I was just going to, kind of touch on another one of those teams that you mentioned, Justin. Again, we talked a little bit, inside baseball here a little bit before we started the show here today about the 49ers and what they're doing. Again, Justin talked about them in our preseason predictions and rankings. But, Mac Jones with his play in the quarterback spot, George Kittle out, Jawan Jennings out, Ricky Pearsall out. Their defense has been up and down. Yeah, all of the guys that have been in and out of the lineup battling injuries, but they find ways to win. Most recently over the Rams, who are playing very good football on both sides. Again, mentioned that the Eagles game, the special teams taking the defending champs, down to the wire and should have won that game. But and the 49ers taking them down in a tight game that could have really been lopsided if the Rams played their best. But 49ers have been impressive so far, and they've got guys coming back here soon.
Yeah, and I want to say that, like, I know he was out to start the season too, but no Brandon Ayuk, who we all know, when healthy, Brandon Ayuk could be a playmaker on that team. And I think it was this most recent week that they were without Ricky, and they were without Jawan, they were without Mac Jones, they were without George Kittle. I mean, you take Christian McCaffrey out of that lineup, you got like no primary starters on the field, and are now arguably Christian McCaffrey played a ginormous role in that offense and the win against the Rams. But even still, like, the 49ers are a team that we're like, okay, yeah, they have an easy schedule. They'll probably be pretty good this year. I remember Justin saying something along those lines in the prediction episode. But to see a team like the 49ers do this with the number of injuries they're encountering is really impressive. And for Mac Jones, like you mentioned, Jake, to pull up in the clutch time and to just use his experience as a starting quarterback in his past to really lead a team is it's awesome to see. And the Seahawks as well, having Sam Darnold there as a new quarterback, and new coaching there. I feel like a lot of these surprising teams aren't because of these juggernaut teams are destroying other teams. It's these teams that were like middle of the line teams to lower tier teams are like, hold on, this new NFL season might be interesting.
I mean, yeah, a little bit to your point though. I mean, we never really touched base about it, but I think we don't get enough credit to the coaches who are coaching these teams. The 49ers are a perfect example of this. You can have so many players with injuries, being healthy, whatever it is, but, there's not many coaches that can say, I can take a beat up team and keep winning multiple games without the best players out there, right? And so to not give Kyle Shanahan for what he has done with his team, I think is absolutely should be. He should get his flowers, and that goes with any other coach that's been carrying their teams and stuff. And yeah, that was just the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, just two minor corrections here. I said the Chargers lost against the Browns. It was actually the Giants. That was my fault there. But I also forgot to mention the Pittsburgh Steelers too. I would also classify them as a bit of a surprise. They're 3-1 right now. Aaron Rodgers has looked really good. We'll see how they perform throughout the rest of the season. But let's talk about some of the bad now. Some teams that we thought, oh come on, they're gonna be so good this year, or they're gonna be at least decent, and they just look terrible. I want to talk about the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud stock down. Do not draft him. Trade him away. Cut him. Terrible. He's been bad. I'm talking fantasy terms here. He's just they have not looked good. The Houston Texans, they're I think third in their division. Like they should have been first. So the talent that they have on that team, they are not performing to their standards. The Baltimore Ravens. This is embarrassing for the Baltimore Ravens. On paper, they have the best team in the NFL, and they look terrible. They are 1-3 right now. They lost a close one to the Bills in the first week. Admittedly, they played hard there, but after that, they have not looked good, and their defense looks absolutely atrocious. I don't know what to say about it. And speaking of atrocious defenses, Cincinnati Bengals have an offense to match their defense now. Unfortunately, it should have been the other way around, because then they would be winning Super Bowls. But now, their defense remained terrible, and their offense is playing terrible.
To your point, the one thing I do want to point out with those teams you mentioned, the Texans and Bengals especially, they both don't have great O lines, right? And we talk about how O lines, it's not very much a spot. Like people who actually watch football probably mention it, but people who are like on the outside are like not mentioning these players. I feel like that's a very important position. No matter what you're doing, it creates running, it creates passing, it's just pretty much everything. Like it's pretty much the foundation, which is part of the reason why both of those teams haven't been able to be that well. For the Ravens, I just don't think they have I think a lot of that's coaching. I don't think Harbaugh's really playing the game really well. And that could just be me analyzing his post game interviews, looking too much into the media, which, yes, I could be doing that. But he just seems so defeated. It doesn't seem like he wants to bring those guys back up. It's just more of like, hey, we're losing right now. This is what's happening. We understand what's happening. And all we can do is, this. Like, it doesn't seem like he's really like, it doesn't seem like, what's the word? They don't seem like they're very.
They don't have a collective, I think is what you're saying. There's not like they have a lot of guys that have gotten paid, but they're not coming together, and the coach is not leading them to come together. Continue, Scam. I didn't just trying to answer your plea there.
It just seems like he doesn't have those guys coming together. And then you also have Derrick Henry, who's been costing a lot of fumbles. and he's getting in his own head, but he's having a coach over here who's not really helping him out to be like, hey, these mental mistakes are not great. You have him and Lamar not on the same page. They're arguing on the sidelines. Like, it just seems like there's no communication there. That's what I see from the Ravens. The other two teams, again, we already knew the Bengals defense. They were never supposed to be really that good. I hate Joe. I don't hate Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. I hate what the Bengals are doing to Joe Burrow. Right?
Huh.
They paid T Higgins all this money to not even pay for an O line to protect him, and then now you're gonna see what's happening after he's been hurt. How many seasons now?
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, nothing against Shamar Stewart, who they took with their first round pick, who was a great player in college for Texas A&M. But he's a D end. Like Peter's mentioning, they had a primed opportunity for a middle first round pick. You have a need offensively. I know they have needs defensively, but nothing against him. But yeah, like I agree with Peter. You have these assets, and they're not capitalizing. They still have more money in free agents. They don't have a ton, but they still have money, and they haven't used it properly.
Jake said it actually. He just brought up a good point. They with Shamar Store, right? Like, yeah, they paid it. They paid this D end who didn't even want to play with them until he actually made some money up front. But you still haven't paid a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who was one of the foundations of that defense. So this is the whole thing about the GM and how they're not putting their money where it should be going. And I think Jake brought up a good point of the Shamar Stewart, thing, and that happened. So
My philosophy when I'm building a team in the Madden is always going to be start with the trenches, because you start with the trenches, you have the foundations of a winning football team. And I think that's a lot of where the bad problems are coming from here, is that these teams are just not starting with that O line. But let's talk about some of the more ugly performances. These are teams that have looked good at times this season, but have looked pretty bad at other times. They can go either way at this point in terms of like playoff potential. They could make it, they could not. We'll see. I'm going to talk about the Denver Broncos because I predict them to be good, and they're not, and I'm mad. And the Dallas Cowboys, too, they're up there in that conversation. They have had some really good spurts, but they have just been losing games. The Kansas City Chiefs, as we brought up before, a team that is supposed to be one of the best in the league, at least one of the best in the AFC. They're 2-2. You wouldn't expect that from them coming into this season. The Commanders haven't looked great. There's some injury concerns with Jaden Daniels there, though. Atlanta Falcons have moments where they look fantastic and moments where they look really bad. I mean, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers game. And then the Los Angeles Rams, too, even though they've won more than they've lost, they've looked pretty good. There are times when they just make boneheaded plays, like when they, lost at the end of the Eagles game. So there's been some ugly performances so far this year.
yeah, I mean, with all those teams you just named, though, I mean, it is week 4. It's week 5. My bad. I'm sorry, week 5. But a lot of again, we talked about it before. Winning 3 phases of the game, right? You have to win mostly all 3 phases of the game in order to win a game, right? So either they have like really good spurts on offense, but has done nothing on defense, or vice versa. They have really good defense and doesn't do anything on offense, right? And I just don't think the camaraderie of all those teams are all there just quite yet. But I think later down the road they can become good. So I wouldn't really say, hey, the Broncos are really that bad of a team right now, or hey, or Dallas is really all that bad of a team right now. Like some of these guys, like you can see that they can perform, but they just haven't schematically put it all together there yet.
Going back to, I guess, these teams that Cam bring up, I guess just to kind of play devil's advocate, I know Cam bring up an important point. It is early. They still have plenty of time. I think some concerns though. Dallas The defense, still a concern. Of course, they made the incredible comeback. Dak playing a fantastic game against the Packers to work back to a tie. But that defense, again, still needs work. Brian Schottenheimer and, Matt Eberflus fired with the Bears, who, again, another team kind of in this mix. They've had some good weeks. They've had some bad moments where, but that Cowboys defense, it's got to be fixed if they want to fight for a playoff spot, fight for the division, and looking at, again, the Bears, the Broncos, Bo Nix, I think a little bit a part of that, kind of finding his stride a little bit of sophomore slump as well. Some teams starting to figure out his tendencies. A great bounce back week this past week for him and that Broncos side. So yeah, I think it's a mix. I think, as Cam mentioned, it's early, but you also got to take a look at these issues moving forward. See which teams correct them, which ones linger, because if they linger, there are some very good teams in the NFL right now. They're going to punish these teams if they can't figure those out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of it's just down to inconsistencies, really, within each organization, and some of them are a bit more glaring than others. And I think that's what we're seeing with these teams, is that they've got the potential, they've got the talent, it's just they need to put it together.
If there was a team right now that is a quote unquote bad team that we put in that category, what team do you think makes the fastest turnaround? And what team are you saying, like, oh, it might be just one of them seasons where you might just call it quits? Like, what's one team you guys think will be a quick turnaround team, a week or two maybe, and what's a team where you're like, this might just be a washed season?
I'm going to take a look at two specifically. I'll take a look at the Broncos and the Cowboys. I think that they both have the potential to turn this thing around, to look better. Bo Nix needs to just play a little bit more consistent. He's been throwing it a little bit loose, I'll say. I think he's I don't know how many interceptions he has, but every time I turn on the TV, I feel like he's throwing an interception. So I think that if they can clean up their offensive play, their defense is there. They've kept the score pretty low, so I think if they can just clean up their offense, they're gonna do well. And I think the Cowboys too, the opposite end, where I think the offense is always scoring when I'm watching them, but their defense is always letting up a score. So if their defense can clean up some of their problems, I think the Cowboys can have a decent season.
To your question though, Peter, I think my
Mm-hmm.
pick for that would have been the Vikings, and
Okay.
I think their defense is really really good. Like when you look at it on paper, they're very very good. And I think
Agreed.
offensively they could put it together. The problem with them is obviously the quarterback play, right? JJ
Mm.
McCarthy isn't, he's still hurt, obviously, but then also not playing up to where he was supposed to. And then you also got Carson Wentz coming in, not really playing that well. But again, does that fall in the line of that the O line hasn't really also played all that well either? But I think if they, a lot of that O line is also injured as well. So maybe they get those guys back off of those injuries, start playing a little bit better, maybe adapting the quarterback play a little bit more, and I could see them winning a decent amount more games.
Yeah, I think as well, to kind of wrap up the again, great question, Peter. Kind of building off of this conversation we've been having here. I'm going to keep it in the division, and I don't know if it's just a believer in what he's got going on, but I'm going with the Chicago Bears as one of those teams that it's been about putting all the pieces together. Caleb Williams was starting to see kind of the new implementation of the offense. Played a great game against that Cowboys defense that Justin was talking about a few weeks ago. They were another team battling through some injuries. Jalen Johnson, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, out indefinitely still. We'll see if he ends up coming back for that defense that, at times last year was keeping them in games while their offense was sputtering. So I think they're a team that if they can right the inconsistencies on offense, I think Roma Dunze is really coming into his own on the offensive side, really kind of coming into that number one as a second-year man with Caleb Williams, and that defense just a little bit more consistent. They had the trials and tribulations at home against the Vikings with that kind of come from behind, like had the victory in the grips and let it get out of hand. But I think that they'll be my team to kind of like right the ship potentially for a playoff spot in the NFC. And yeah, I think I'm with you with Justin and that Ravens team. I think on a team that, very tough schedule. Adding on to what Cam said earlier, it just seems like there needs to be like a shift. There needs to be something that happens that wakes them up, whether it's Harbaugh getting fired, whether it's a trade, whether it's someone getting benched. I think there needs to be some kind of like fuse put together, two fuse ends put together, something like that. Potentially jumpstart this team, but I don't know where it comes from at this point. Well, we'll have to see how these teams turn out. Will these great teams, these surprising stories continue with these teams that it's been a mixed bag of marbles, a mixed box of chocolates? Will they continue to have these two-phase games moving forward? Tune in to the action. We'll have some further breakdown in our next episode, maybe looking at some predictions, looking at where all of the teams stand. And that will do it for another episode of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Again, thank you all from all of us for listening. Be sure to tune in to new episodes right here on YouTube. Again, thank you for listening, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.